Coming up on this special holiday edition of the Penn State Blitz, Greg Pickle will gobble like a turkey. We're going to talk about Penn State and the return of the transfer portal. Do the Lions have a quarterback controversy? Where's Penn State in the latest college football playoff rankings? And as always, we conclude with the Penn State Mailbag. It's been a while. It has been a while since we mentioned the dreaded two words that all Penn State fans and James Franklin hate: transfer portal.
Yes.
I guess technically it's the NCAA transfer portal.
Yes.
But for brevity's sake, which I am not being brief right now, it's the transfer portal, kind of out of nowhere, but maybe not. Justin Shorter, per Yahoo Sports' Pete Thamel, and he's a very good reporter, is in the transfer portal at the moment. James Franklin met with him on Tuesday before he met with us. Mm-hmm. Didn't really have much to say. I think he was just kind of in the process of trying to figure out where Justin is, but it's not really been a great start to Justin's career, and it might be over at Penn State. But how do you kind of process this news?
Yeah, it's a little bit surprising because you just don't tend to see too many guys go into the portal with one game to go.
Unless you're at Michigan State.
Well, yeah, they've had that issue, and it actually started long before the last game of the regular season. So, I mean, from an injury standpoint, yeah, if you know you're going to leave, why play one more game? Right. What good is it going to do you is the way to look at it. Yes. I just wonder if this – so I think what the reason – was this a frustration problem and Justin Shorter was just frustrated and said, I want out of here?
Yeah.
Or was it more about development and usage and things like that? And if it's the latter one, then I think there's no chance Penn State can talk him into staying like it did Lamont Wade, like it did Cam Sullivan-Brown. But if it's just purely a frustration thing and they can sit down and show him maybe some things that they can do better, maybe some things that he can do better, then they'll have a shot at retaining him and not losing him to the portal. So, at this point, I don't know about you, I'd say it's probably 90-10 that he leaves to stay. I mean, again, you just don't, we can point to Lamont Wade staying and it working out for him, and that's fine and well, but, he didn't do it with the game left to go in the regular season.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about Justin and what Penn State had and what they might be losing. A five-star recruit along with Micah Parsons and Ricky Slade, who we might be talking about very shortly as well. 3 5-star recruits in Penn State's 2018 class. A lot of people thought that maybe Justin was the top receiver prospect in the entire 2018 class. Yeah. Big kid who can run, from New Jersey. Dealt with an injury early in 2018, never really got going. They redshirted him. This year felt like all systems were go. Mm-hmm. A big receiver. Penn State needs a big receiver in the offense to pair with, to kind of pair with KJ and also with Jahan Dotson. Had a couple of nice plays in the Idaho game, but it was kind of more of the same. He never really developed. Some big drops in the Minnesota game. Ironically, I thought he played pretty well against Ohio State. I think he had 3 catches. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I'm surprised by the news, but I just wonder, some things that I'm wondering about. Penn State brought in a new wideouts coach, hopefully to kind of – James Franklin called him aggressive in his coaching. I think part of it was to get maybe Justin turned around. Jared Parker's the coach, but clearly the numbers were not there. And I just wonder, sometimes moving on helps. Juwan Johnson, another wideout from New Jersey, left after 2018. He's got 4 touchdown catches with Oregon. The thing about Justin, though, is if he does move, you presume it's going to be to a big school. He's going to have to sit out a year. Right. He hasn't been at Penn State long enough to graduate. So I think James Franklin's going to have to re-recruit him. It might be too little too late. But I guess another question for you is, I mentioned Ricky Shorter, another 5-star running back.
Ricky Slade, yeah.
Ricky Shorter. Ricky Slade. He didn't make the trip against Ohio State, violation of team rules. Looks like he's now the number 4 man in the running back rotation. Do you anticipate maybe hearing some news with him and also maybe some other players?
Yeah, it certainly wouldn't shock me. I mean, look, I think the portal has made not only the transfer process public, but also more aggressive. I think guys, if they feel like they're either too far down the depth chart or they're not being used the way they should be used, or they think they can, get a bigger role elsewhere, they're just going to go. And if they have to sit out a year, they'll sit out a year. If they think they have a case for an immediate eligibility waiver, they might hire an attorney. Their family might hire an attorney to go and try and petition the NCAA for that. So, yeah, it's changed college football. Whether that's for the better or for the worse, I think is up to, each fan and each person's opinion. But, yeah, I mean, anyone down the depth chart is fair game at this point, like we saw a year ago. And some of those guys went to lower levels, Bob, and they thrived maybe at a place where their talent more matched what they were playing against each week. And so, yeah, I think one final thought, though, was shorter, Bob, is that it's really concerning Penn State's sort of track record here with receivers. I mean,
New Jersey receivers.
Well, New Jersey receivers, you've been on that train for a couple of months now.
I have been.
But, Irv Charles, Saeed Blacknall, Juwan Johnson,
all
Justin
Jersey
Shorter.
guys, big receivers.
And, I mean, KJ Hamlers they developed, obviously. But
it's the Jersey guys.
I don't know
That's the common denominator.
I don't know what to make of it. So it's a problem. They better hope to keep him, because if not, even if he's not developing the way we thought he would, who's going to catch passes for this team next year if Freiermuth, Hamler, and Shorter would all leave?
Yeah, that's a great point. And like you said, this problem is not going to go away. Kids want to play, and they want to play immediately. And if they don't hear or they don't see results, they're going to look around. Parents can be unhappy. They got people in their ear. Penn State's senior class has a lot of five-star players that overcame some adversity to get to this point and to start. Garrett Taylor had a knee injury. In high school, Nick Bowers missed his 2 years of his Penn State career with an injury. There's Robert Windsor was a bit of a project. Steven Gonzalez wasn't highly thought of maybe when he got to Penn State. All of those guys are going to be honored with the rest of the senior class, and they overcame some adversity. But it just seems like some kids they have very high expectations to play right away, and if they don't play right away, they want to look elsewhere. It's unfortunate.
Right. Yeah.
Let's go to second down, and let's talk about the quarterbacks. A lot of people, including James Franklin, like what they saw from Will Levis in the second half at Ohio State. Big spot for his first meaningful snaps as Sean Clifford took a hit, undisclosed injury. I think it's a lower leg injury, it looks like. He couldn't continue. Franklin said he could play, but, Greg, it's a little interesting to hear him say he's been dealing with this for 3, maybe 4 games. And he stuck with Levis, who made some plays as a runner. A couple of plays as a thrower. He did throw an interception, but that was a tough environment to really kind of debut with the first team offense. Sean is going to be a game time decision against Rutgers this Saturday on Senior Day. I don't think he really should play, honestly.
What's the point?
He wants to play. James made that clear. But big picture, let's just talk big picture. In your mind, is there any possible way you could look at this as either not necessarily, maybe not a quarterback controversy, but a quarterback battle?
Well, I think they go into every spring practice and every summer camp. James Franklin talks about how everyone competes for their job, and it doesn't matter if you're Etor Gross-Matos or Jake Pinniger, Micah Parsons. It doesn't matter. So, yeah, this will be an open job again. There's no question. But, I don't think there's a controversy. Sean will go into that battle as the top guy. And, when you look at the bowl picture, which we'll get into in a second, it's very likely at this point that Penn State's going to have a New Year's Six opportunity for the third time in 4 years. You need your best players healthy for that national televised big stage game. Yeah. So to me, if we can sit here and say all we want that Sean Clifford is going to have a month off and that'll magically heal him, and it might. Why put the extra week of hits on him to play a Rutgers team that, if you started Michael Johnson Jr. or Taquan Roberson, you'd probably win by 30
I think Michael Schuster, too.
Absolutely.
Michael Schuster in there.
The pride of Camp Hill, yes. So I don't see the point of playing him this week. If you want to run him out there for a couple series, I guess that's okay. But looks like it's going to be sloppy weather-wise. If you think there's any chance that Will Levis could win the job in the spring, then the game time, real game reps now would be, very important. So for all of those reasons, I don't think there's a quarterback controversy. If Sean Clifford's healthy, he's going to start the bowl game. But I don't see any reason for him to start this week.
Yeah, and I just want to say this. I just kind of detect a little bit of anti-Clifford sentiment for the way that the season kind of ended.
Well, there was anti-Trace McSorley sentiment last year.
And I just think that anyone who's thinking that is just you're not doing it right. He had a tremendous first season. When you talk about where he was in January of 2019, and I think he went into this Ohio State game as the number one player in total offense in the Big Ten. And he's been playing hurt. He's run the ball over 100 times. He's made a ton of plays with his legs to win games. Indiana, Iowa, Michigan.
Yep.
I mean, they would not be anywhere near 10 wins or with a shot at 10 wins if he didn't play. I think he's had a really good year. I think he's done some great things in his first year. And I just think the Bills kind of come due. I've said that before with the toll of the season and the hits, the sacks, the quarterback runs, the quarterback hits. All of that has just kind of added up. And you could tell he's really not, I don't know what percentage James Franklin would say, but he looks like he's 3/4 of what he was. And I think he needs to rest. And I think we need to see the best version of Sean Clifford in the bowl game. I hope Will Levis plays. I hope the freshmen play. I hope Schuster plays. They don't need him against Rutgers. But I just really think that I think that the last couple of games, people are losing sight of what Sean Clifford did for this team. And I know his teammates and Coach Franklin and Coach Ronnie feel that way. But let the guy heal. And I think when he's healthy, he's really a heck of a player.
It's the Penn State Blitz podcast. Penn State Blitz podcast on Penn Live. I don't know how we want to name it this week, but you can find it everywhere you get your audio, Apple, Stitcher, Google. If you subscribe, you get it early, which could be good for your Thanksgiving travels. Have a safe trip to everyone out on the road. Don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe. Also, Bob, you can watch the video version of this too. Penn Live or YouTube.com/allpennstate. That was not the cleanest read, but we got through it.
Man, you have a lot on your plate for this podcast. I think you see where I'm going with this.
I
It's a little
do.
segue. James Franklin said it's sweet potato pie over pumpkin pie. What can you tell me about your Thanksgiving meal? How much food are you going to eat, and what's your favorite part of the Thanksgiving,
We're jumping
process?
ahead to the mailbag. Pumpkin pie over pecan pie, white meat over pecan pie and sweet potato pie for that matter. I know. White meat over dark meat, and that's me.
Well, how much you gonna eat though?
Oh, too much. Everyone eats too much on Thanksgiving. I believe it's James Franklin put it earlier this week. It's an American thing.
Will you be asleep roughly around 3:30 in the afternoon, and then wake up to do some more eating and
No,
football
on the
viewing?
inverse, I power through from about noon until 8 p.m. and then it's over. I don't know if I've ever seen the end of the last NFL game on Thanksgiving Thursday.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with the eating and the football watching, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be some gambling. But good luck with all of that in Middletown.
Yes.
Let's move along here on the Penn State Blitz, and let's talk about the new college football playoff rankings and where Penn State's at. And it's pretty clear the committee.
Yeah.
I just use air quotes for committee here on the podcast. They have 2 losses, but I think a lot of people respect where Penn State is at in their season at 9-2, given how they've lost. They could have beat Minnesota. Credit to Minnesota for winning. And they're the only team that's been within sniffing distance of Ohio State entering the fourth quarter, only down 4. So where are they, Greg? And how do you see this big picture? What should Penn State fans be looking for this weekend with the Ohio State-Michigan result, the Wisconsin-Minnesota result in Minnesota, and maybe even the Big Ten championship game result?
Right. So they're number 10. Clearly, the committee loves Penn State, whatever numbers they're using to evaluate. And James Franklin shared a couple of them this week with the strength of schedule numbers, saying that I believe the worst strength of schedule ranking has them number 10, the highest at number 1. So the committee loves that
Humble
win.
brag. Humble brag.
Rob Mullins, the committee chair, the Oregon AD, loves that Pittsburgh win, too. He brings it up every chance he gets.
Pitts got shut out, did they not?
Yeah, by Virginia Tech. Speaking of gambling misfires, at any rate, I think that the fact that the committee, so Ohio State finally showed some weakness, and then they jump LSU to go back to number 1. I thought that was fairly interesting. But if you're a Penn State fan and you want the Lions to go to a New Year's Six Bowl, you need Ohio State to go to the college football playoff. You need 2 SEC teams to make the college football playoff. And as long as those 2 things happen, Penn State's almost guaranteed a spot in the New Year's Six Bowl pecking order, because it's either going to be the Rose Bowl, depending on how Minnesota, Wisconsin, and then possibly the Big Ten title game shakes out. Minnesota loses at Wisconsin this weekend. Wisconsin goes to the Big Ten title game. As long as Ohio State beats Wisconsin, it's Rose Bowl for Penn State. If Minnesota loses close to Ohio State, then I think you could see maybe the Lions go to the Orange Bowl, Minnesota to the Rose Bowl, and Alabama go to the Sugar Bowl, which would leave Penn State as the next highest ranked SEC Big Ten team or Notre Dame. So them being ahead of Florida on Tuesday night was huge. I'm not saying the Outback Bowl is totally off the table because chaos is, of course, the name of the game in college football this time of year. But if things play out the way we think they will, Penn State's going to be back to a third New Year's Six Bowl in 4 years, Bob. Who would have thought that at the beginning of the season?
So let me just whittle this down. Looking really good for possibly either the Rose Bowl or did you say the Orange Bowl?
Correct.
So for you're choosing between Santa Anita Park or Gulfstream Park for your holiday plans. Let's just what about how does it impact you, Greg?
I would say this, that it's a long flight to California and you sit in a lot of traffic. So I think that either way, Penn State's gonna have a chance to showcase where it is as a program.
Yeah.
And that's why, going back to the Sean Clifford conversation, you need that guy to be 100%. So, take the hits off. The Penn State said they use Will Levis as the option quarterback, the wildcat quarterback, to try and take some hits off Sean Clifford. Just take the whole game worth of hits off him this weekend.
Agreed. Before we get to the mailbag, and I hope I'm not stealing more of your thunder, I just wanted to give a shout out to Harrisburg High's Micah Parsons.
Yes.
Butkus Award finalist. The Butkus Award is given to the nation's top linebacker. I don't know if he made the top 12, top 10.
It was the top 6, I believe.
Top 6.
Yeah.
But what a year he's having. He already has more tackles this year than he did all of last year, 85. Doubled his tackles for loss. He's got 10 this year. He had 5 last year. He's had 5 games this year with 10 or more tackles. And really, I mean, Yetur Gross-Matos, is a guy that probably is looking at the 2020 NFL draft.
Yeah.
You can make it. I think Mike has been their best defensive player this year. I think Yetur's had a pretty solid year. His numbers are finally starting to add up. But if you look at the year that Micah had as only his second year as a linebacker, because he didn't play that position at Harrisburg, he is tracking towards not only a great finish to this year, but if he stays healthy, knock on wood, just a monster 2020 season.
Absolutely. I mean, he has been consistently one of Penn State's best players overall, not just defensively, but in totality in most games. And it's amazing to think he's only been playing that linebacker role for one season, Bob.
Yeah. And I just want to say he's done all of this while raising a puppy, Simba.
Yes.
So shout out to Simba. I hope he's doing well. Micah, I'm sure you have your hands full with Simba, a bully pit bull. I remember that from our talk after, I think, the Michigan State game. Okay, now after all this, I think we got to get to the Penn State Thanksgiving holiday Big Ten championship precursor.
Yeah, there you go.
Mailbag. I think that's pretty convoluted, but I'm going to pat myself on the back for that one.
16 seniors will be honored by Penn State before the game on Saturday. If you could give one of them an extra year of eligibility, which one would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one. As much as I like Cam Brown, they have Brandon Smith waiting in the wings, the freshman who I think is going to really hit the ground running next year in the starting lineup. For me, it's Robert Windsor. I think he did a lot of dirty work at Penn State. I think he got better. He was a fifth-year senior. Cam Brown never got his redshirt season.
Yeah.
I like a lot of those guys, but I just think that Robert Windsor as a defensive tackle, depth's always an issue there. So I think that would probably be the guy Penn State would say, if you want to come back for another year, we'd love to have you back.
Go with Blake Gilligan, just simply because of the fact that I don't. So we know Jordan Stout can punt, but I'm a little bit leery of the fact of what they'll look like punting-wise next year. And you're right. I mean, with Robert, I don't think there's a wrong pick out of some of these guys, but how many times, and we know that Blake Gilligan was inconsistent in some games, but he also helped them win a lot of games. When he was on, there was not many punters better than him in the country.
Iowa, Michigan State stretch, that might probably would be the stretch that I think he really stood out, and their coverage guys, Jacena and Hartlob.
Yep, Drew Hartlob. Yep.
Also had a lot to do with some of his success. Not a bad pick, Gregory. Do you have anything else for me?
If you could kick Rutgers out of the Big Ten,
would.
I was going to say, who would you replace him with?
Oh, man. Who would I replace him with? How about Notre Dame?
Okay. That's an easy pick.
That's it?
Slam dunk.
I thought you were navigating towards something.
We're working on the fly.
At some point, doesn't Notre Dame have to join a conference?
You would think so. I mean, they're kind of already 1.5 feet into the ACC.
I know.
So,
I mean, I don't know who else you would take, but I mean, that would be my pick. I think a Penn State Notre Dame game every year would be tremendous for the fan base. I think Notre Dame would like it too.
Yeah. All right. Last one. If you look at this Penn State Rutgers matchup, it's very difficult to get into the nitty gritty of it because Rutgers is so bad. But You asked James Franklin about some of the younger receivers, and just in that vein, which young player are you most interested to see on the field Saturday? Because I think it's going to be like a blue-white game where we see a lot of young guys and some guys that have not played yet this season get their feet wet with game action.
Yeah, I whenever he's on the field, I try and keep an eye on him because he is an explosive player. It's Brandon Smith for me. I think you're talking about. I just remember what Matt Millen told me out in Chicago about he might be the best linebacker, pure linebacker in terms of instincts, knowledge of the position, reaction time, all athleticism, 6'3", 240 already, January enrollee. I just can't wait to see him next year, and I hope they play him a lot against Rutgers, and I think he'll really benefit, as will a lot of the other guys, from the extra December practices. But for me, it's Brandon Smith. I just think he's got a really, really huge future ahead of him.
I want to see the young receivers do something, whether it's TJ Jones or John Dunmore. If Penn State puts one of those guys into the game, what can they do? Because, Bob, if KJ Hamler leaves, if Justin Shorter ends up leaving, so Hamler would have to declare early, of course. Shorter would have to end up taking the portal elsewhere. So, but they're just going to be in some tough place going into the spring pass catching wise. So I'd love to see what those guys can do.
You haven't gobbled like a turkey yet before we close out the show.
I don't even know if I'm capable of it with this cold.
He's a little under the weather. He's playing through. Happy holidays, everyone. And we still got, I think, a little bit left to talk to, or no? Are we going to wrap this up?
Let's get into the picks and predictions.